Is the Reno housing market finally cooling off, or are we just catching our breath? In today's September market update, we'll look at home prices, inventory, and the latest mortgage news. And of course, as I do each and every month, we'll be taking a peek at what this means for both buyers and sellers. So make sure you don't go anywhere until the end of the video. Hey, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Sarah Schultz. I am a realtor in the Northern Nevada housing market, and today, as I do each and every month, I'll be delivering to you the data deep dive. This is where we look at all of the recently published market data and give you all those important KPIs and the analysis of what it could mean. If you're new here, the market data in our market is published at the end of each month and it is in arrears. So basically, this is a summary of what has happened for the month of August. It's going to give you good insight. However, keep in mind that these are lagging metrics, meaning that this data was recently just published. However, you have to keep in mind the timeline for real estate transactions in our market and most places is about a 30-day escrow. So even though these deals and these metrics are reflecting what has recently closed, you have to imagine that they are somewhat reflective of what the market was doing about 30 days prior. Anyway, that was into the weeds. If it didn't make any sense, feel free to leave a comment or you can book a call with me and we can talk further, but I'm going to dive right in. The median sales price landed at $600,000. Now keep in mind, you guys, these metrics are for single family homes and they are for all of Washoe County. So obviously these are not going to be the same metrics that we would look at for condos, townhouses, vacant land, etc. These are just for single family homes. This is going to give you a good idea. However, market activity and market data is so neighborhood specific, especially in our market and especially in these times. So if you have specific questions about, specific zip codes or the difference between Reno or Sparks or Carson or whatever, just feel free to reach out because I can provide you with very specific neighborhood data. All right, $600,000 is ever so slightly up from last month, but down year over year. Number of closed sales. Now this is a big change and it really truly feels this way on the ground. There is a lot less market activity happening overall. Number of closed sales landed at 386, which is a whopping 10% decrease from the closeout of July. Let's talk about number of days to contract. If you aren't aware, this is the amount of time that it takes from a listing to go live to a listing to get an accepted offer. So this number landed at 29 days, which is pretty much flat month over month. That said, homes are taking longer than they were a year ago at this time. Let's talk about the list to sold price, or percent of list price received is another way of saying that. This number came in at 98.5%. Sellers aren't quite getting what they're asking, but it is close. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that every month I say this is the metric that changes the least. This month is no different. However, it is a little bit more of a change than it was in previous months. I think that we are all starting to feel this market cooling, this shift to a buyer's market, but I'm going to get further into that, so don't go anywhere. Number of new listings. This is a huge change month over month, a 17% decrease, in fact, coming in at 463 new listings. So we're seeing less inventory coming onto the market. However, there's more to that story, so stay with me as I get through these last few KPIs. Active inventory came in at 1,226 listings, which is a 10% increase year over year. There's a lot more inventory sitting on the market, even though there are less new listings coming in. So that's telling us that listings are taking longer to sell and it's kind of piling up the inventory in our market. All right, I've got one more for you guys, and that's going to be kind of the rest of this inventory picture for you. Months supply of inventory. If you didn't know, this metric tells you that if no new inventory came on the market, this is how long it would take to absorb what is currently on the market, and that number came in at 3.2 months. This is up as well, both month over month and year over year, which is giving buyers a lot more breathing room. So more inventory is sitting, less inventory is coming online, yet it's still piling up. So the absorption rate is really what is decreasing. So overall, in summary, what we are seeing is a market with more inventory, slower sales, and sellers having to adjust their expectations. In my last market update, a few people left comments and reached out and said, hey, how do the mortgage rates play into all of this? Full disclosure, I'm a realtor, I'm not a lender. So mortgage rates are really not my specific wheelhouse, although I can give you a bit of general oversight about what those mean. But if you're going to need to get a pre-approval or know more about your personal monthly payment information, etc., that's going to have to happen with a lender. I do have great lending partners I can connect you with, but I'm going to give you just a very general overview to help you kind of understand how that plays into all of this. The 30-year fixed mortgage average at the time of filming this, now you guys have to understand I do batch content, I send it out to be edited, and then it comes back, so things could shift in the next week or two, but at the time of filming this, the rates for a 30-year fixed mortgage are sitting between 6.56% and 6.59%. The good news is that this is the lowest we've seen in about 10 months. The other piece of that puzzle, however, is that as mortgage rates come down, we do tend to see prices go up because competition will drive that. Although we're at this moment in time where there is a window of opportunity for buyers because so far the competition hasn't really started to arise yet. Prices are on their way down. So this is actually a really great time for buyers to be leveraging deals. I'm going to get into more of that in a second, but I have a few more points to give you. Analysts are predicting that mortgage rates could gradually slip into the mid 6% range by the end of the year. They're not calling this a crash, but they are predicting that this is going to open the door for more refinances and general buyer affordability. Good news if a purchase is on the horizon for you. Here's an important thing to know. A lot of people don't realize this, and truth be told, I think that when I get into mortgage news, I try to keep it really general and easily digestible for mass audiences. Mortgage rates move more with the 10-year treasury yield than the Fed's direct rate hikes. That said, you can't necessarily expect a massive mortgage rate cut every time the Fed announces a cut. Rates are easing just enough, it seems, to keep buyers in the game, but they are still elevated compared to the last decade. So I think right now buyers are really feeling both high price tags, even though they're slightly coming down, mortgage rates that are higher than they've been in the last decade. Affordability is a huge challenge for, I think, the national housing market, but definitely for sure in the Washoe County housing market. Let's get into what this means for both buyers and sellers. I know that's why you're all here, so thanks for bearing with me. Overall, as it sits right now, buyers have more homes to choose from, more than we've had in several years, and also it seems more time to make those decisions, so buyers can really carefully vet pros and cons of specific neighborhoods, specific listings. They can really fine-tune their financing strategy with their mortgage professional, or if they have other nuanced strategies to sort of think through. You're no longer having to make this rash, spur of the moment decision whether or not you want to pull the trigger. You do have some breathing room, which is good news for you. We are also seeing that percent of list price received, the lowest that it's been in quite some time, coming in at 98.5%. That's still a very close number to 100%. It's not like sellers are just giving away houses by any means. However, there is more room now for negotiations, concessions, or price adjustments than we've seen in a very, very long time. So you're going to want to leverage that on the buy side and make sure you're taking full advantage. The truth is that we don't know, even I don't know, being a professional in this industry, we don't really know what's going to happen with rates or with the market. It can be extremely challenging to time the market. So overall, the best time to buy or sell or do anything in life is when it makes the most sense for you. We can almost always look at where we are in the market, where rates are, what your specific needs are, and put together a winning strategy regardless of what's happening in the market. So I would say be careful trying to time the market. It's really not something that can easily be predicted by anyone. Let's flip over to the sell side of the transaction, and I'll give you some advice there. Most people, unless they are buying their first house or selling their last house, are going to find themselves on both sides of the transaction at once. So the other thing to consider is that it can be very hard to win on both sides of the transaction. Usually what's happening in the market is going to be happening for you on both sides. So just keep that in mind. I can't stress this enough. If you are selling a home or thinking about it, your pricing strategy matters right now more than it has in a very, very long time. Do not overprice your listing. Most likely, the average days on market is looking to be about 29 days. If you overprice, you can really count on that being a lot longer, or you're going to end up having price reductions. Your property is going to become stigmatized. People are going to wonder what's wrong with it. That is literally the worst thing you can do in almost any market, but especially right now where buyers have a lot of leverage and they're really savvy these days, you guys. A lot of people, historically, realtors had the role of like showing you what was available on the market when working with a buyer. Now our role really doesn't have so much of that. I mean, we put you on property alerts for sure, but our role really comes into play after you're already in contract, right? It's more about the negotiations. It's about giving guidance about, you know, which part of town, which part of a market you should be looking towards, having a strategy for leveraging seller concessions, repair credits, all of those things. It's really not about showing you what's on the market. You guys have that. You have Zillow, you have Realtor.com and Redfin, and a plethora of other platforms that are going to give you what you need. So with that, buyers have access to comps in many cases. I think that Zillow even automates those and shows you what comps you should be looking at with AI at the bottom of each listing. So we can pull comps, and that's not to say that Zillow is accurate. I mean, that's a whole other video for another time, but like in general, buyers are a lot more informed now than they ever have been in history. So if you overprice your listing, it's going to be really obvious, and there's so much inventory on the market that if your listing is overpriced, a buyer may very well assume that you are unreasonable and move right along to the next option because they have a lot of options. So just keep that in mind as you're pricing. I'm not saying give it away. I'm not saying take a loss. I am saying be strategic. And you need to really look at the comps that are recent. And a lot of those are going to be what's under contract, because that's going to tell you what's happening more in real time than like the house that sold 6 months or 12 months ago. Those comps aren't necessarily relevant anymore. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. Buyers are also rate sensitive. Even though rates are the lowest they've been in 10 months, it's still an affordability issue across the board, right? Especially if a buyer is financing. So you could consider offering incentives up front, like closing credits or temporary rate buy downs, or doing other things like a pre-listing inspection and having that available to buyers, saying, hey, we've already inspected this home. We know what's wrong with it. We've gone ahead and fixed it. Or here's a contractor bid for all the things that are wrong, and we're offering a credit for those repairs up front. Don't even worry about that part. You can do any number of things to make your listing more attractive than the house next to it that's still sitting on the market. And here's my last piece of advice for sellers. If you know me or you follow me, I am so big on this. I'm really big on marketing, digital marketing, which is, you know, why we're all here. But presentation, you guys, this is among the most important things you can consider if you're selling your home. Presentation matters. If you have an agent who's using a cell phone for listing photos and throwing it on the MLS with a hope and a prayer, I'm sorry, but no, that's not going to cut it. You need more than that. You need professional photography. You need drone footage to give context of what that home looks like within a neighborhood. You need Matterport imaging, where buyers can actually go in and click from point to point and take a 3D virtual tour, because we are a huge relocation market. I mostly work with relocators. So if you are thinking about relocating here, I would love to work with you as an aside. However, I see this all day, every day. Relocators who aren't on the ground and don't have the convenience or luxury of going to complete a housing tour in person, they need as much virtual, tangible material to understand what a house looks and feels like. And if you're not providing that up front, you know what? The house down the street probably is, and it's going to be a tough competition. You need all of the digital marketing campaigns in the world. You need an agent who's going to pay to do e-blasts and mailers and all the things that are going to get the most eyeballs and airtime for your listing, because if you're not, someone else is, and that's just the hard, cold truth. All right, that was a lot to take in. In summary, the Reno housing market right now is a balancing act. Prices are holding fairly steady. We are seeing slight cooling, but really, so far, nothing to write home about compared to other markets. For now, Inventory is rising. Mortgage rates are easing, but they're still high enough to influence buyer behavior. Whether you are buying or selling or both, the strategy that you choose right now is paramount to your success and your outcome. If you are thinking about making a move, I would love to be a resource for you. You can book a free strategy call with me. There's a link to do that in the show notes below. It's totally free, no obligation, just a chance to connect, see if we might be a good fit to work together, or at the very least, get your questions answered and help you devise a strategy for next and best steps. And if you haven't already, please hit the like and the subscribe button. I put out new videos each and every week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and of course, all things to do with buying and selling real estate. And hey, as an aside, if you're in another market outside of Northern Nevada, or if you're thinking about moving here but you have a house to sell in another state first, I have amazing referral partners in almost every state. So feel free to reach out to me for that, and I can connect you with someone who's going to take great care of you. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.